Unmute.
It's too much. I'm tired of this shit. I'm not the engineer.
Every week.
I know, but I'm tired. I need my engineer back. Just producer shit going to somebody's head. But but welcome to the Artist Exchange Radio Show here live only on BeExposedRadio.com. I am your illustrious host with the mostest, Mr. Nate Couser. Okay, so I'm maybe I shouldn't start with a gripe because my friend told me I shouldn't keep doing that. But I don't care. I wouldn't be Nate. So my only gripe is I think we need to, as we progress with technology and as time moves on and things evolve and we have more luxuries in life that helps us to live life easier. I didn't I say soon. First of all, I'm not letting anybody else organize my desk for me unless somebody organize my desk and can't find shit. But my gripe for today is I think that we are forgetting how to do basic things like remember a phone number because now all I got to do is look at your name or recent calls. I don't even type in your name anymore. I just look at recent calls and that's how I remember what we talked about and what your number. We don't even know your number anymore. Um, don't even know your own number. But more specifically with GPS, you know, now that, we're getting more deliveries on a more regular basis, um, except for Marnie, because I think he had addiction to Amazon before all this started. But anyway, we are all growing addicted to, getting things delivered. But these drivers and these people who are delivery people have forgotten how to look for an address. So every time I order out or I get something delivered, I get a text message asking me where I'm at. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough for me to like get a little agitated. Like, look at your phone. I'm quite sure my address is on the app. Look at the building. Look at the phone. Stop looking at. He was getting my delivery driver today was getting frustrated because when they get closer to your house, like the little dot that represents you is moving. And I said, what the hell am I supposed to sit still until you get here? Like I was moving around my apartment. So he was frustrated because he was trying to find me and he just said the dot just kept moving. I said, but look at the address. Like, are you outside the building? People forgot how to look at the building and see where the address is at. And I'm not judging nobody because I'm allowing technology to run me and I'm trying not to let that happen. But, with technology growing, we can't help but to do that. But however, you just start doing some basic things like writing stuff down instead of we don't even type stuff into our messenger anymore. I see so many people now clicking on the audio button and just talking their notes. They don't even write anymore. So, and this is why our children don't know how to write, don't read very well. Their comprehension skills are very low, because as adults, our comprehension, our writing, our speaking, and all that is, going down because of technology. And we sometimes have to train ourselves, you know, like for me with texting, it used to bother me that a lot of my friends would text me and it'd be like code. So then I had to break the code and such. And it's just annoying. So I say to you this, like, just, sometimes do things the right way. Get a journal where you physically have to write. Type out the whole sentence in your text. I know that kills the mood, that kills the vibe, but don't let your mind become mush with technology. And that's why a lot of us are having trouble remembering things, because we're not ever in the moment and we're doing everything digitally and nothing is what it was. And I'm all for change, but we have to remember the basics: communication, comprehension. This, you know, I thought GPS, when we had GPS, that was like the thing. But now we have GPS on our phone, so we don't even. I do it myself when I'm going somewhere. I put the address in, and then I click on image so I can actually see the physical building. But come on now, this it takes you nothing to actually look for an address. But okay, that's my gripe for today. I'm not gonna gripe for a whole 10 minutes, maybe just 8. But if you're watching for the first time, please like, share, subscribe to our YouTube page, our Facebook page. My great, great, great. Just a shout out to Jermaine. He's a young man who has been helping me just keep up with my YouTube on the various platforms that I have, and he's been helping me like figure out easy shortcuts and stuff like that. And I just finished talking about shortcuts, but to getting all this done, this is a lot to do, even just for one person. But just know being a full-time artist is a job in of itself. And if that's your career path, more power to you. I understand it, but um, get help if you need it. And I definitely needed the help. And I am very excited. This young man, he's a junior now, so I have him for one more year, and I'm gonna try to figure out how to keep him beyond that. Um, Interest him so he can stay longer. But today I'm supposed to have a guest coming. I guess he'll be here shortly. But in the meantime, Marnie, are you there, Marnie? Are you there?
I guess.
So I wanted to talk. I mean, while we wait for the guest to get here, I know you've been itching to talk about this Cuomo issue. I know there's a lot of other things going on in the news right now with the strip clubs here in the city
Mm-hmm.
wanting to open back up. And I heard they were already open, so I guess they can't officially open their front doors. But I heard through the grapevine they had already been doing some lap dances down there. They just can't promote, or you can't, they ain't got bouncers at the door no more, because then that makes them look like they open. But um, can you, like, how you feel? I know you mad about these quote unquote victims that are coming out against Cuomo.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he's going to be forced to
I'm
do?
more. I'm more so mad. I'm mad at them too, but I'm mad at the media too right now. And I typically don't have the gripe with the media because the media is supposed to report facts and then
Right.
have people come on the talking heads that are that do the opinions.
Mm-hmm.
But this time around, I fault the media for spreading the
Putting the
misconception
verbiage out there.
that these women are victims.
Right. They putting the
No.
verbiage out there right
Yeah.
now.
They're using that verbiage from the Me Too movement, but the Me Too movement meant those women were actually sexually assaulted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what Me Too was about. Sexual assault. That makes them victims. These women weren't victims. These women were victims of unwanted propositions, unwanted, for lack of a better word. This man wanted to get to know you better. He wanted to go on a date. He wanted to date you. That is not assault.
Did he
It
work
may
with
be
all of them?
inappropriate because it's in the workplace.
Okay, so that's my question. I didn't see where they all worked with him.
They was in the government, in New York's government.
So
So
they
it may
weren't
be inappropriate,
necessarily.
but it was not. It does not make you a victim.
So he wasn't necessarily directly their supervisor or their boss.
One of them, he was their direct. They was his direct supervisor. But
Because now
after you've known someone for 4 years, I think you should have the clairvoyance or the opportunity to turn someone down without being malicious with it. If you
but
weren't interested, you just say no. No, thank you.
but and this is the argument that I've had for a long time, because I've had arguments with friends and I've seen them shoot down one guy and call him creepy, but another guy comes and says the same thing to them, but they're attracted to him, or they're attracted to what they can do for him, and they become giggly and they like it. But this guy just said the same thing to you, but because you wasn't attracted to him, it becomes creepy to
That's
you.
why I'm trying to understand that. I would love to question her. Like, I would love to do an interview with her because I don't think Nora O'Donnell did that interview justice when she
Uh,
didn't ask this one of the simplest questions that should have asked. How did you turn him down? How did you reject him?
um,
How? Because you basically didn't just get up and just leave with the answer unanswered. You didn't do
well,
that.
Well, they not gonna ask that question because then it puts a lot of the responsibility then on the woman.
That's my point. We got to get all sides, and you have to get the complete picture, not part of the picture. If
Right,
you're going
right.
to do this extensive, because you kept saying this is an extensive and exclusive interview, then
It
ask
was.
all the questions. Don't ask some of the questions. Ask all of them because that question means something greatly. How did you get out of that situation? You didn't just start texting on your phone and then walk out without answering this question. Because
I
then the
mean,
question is still unopened. It's still open. The conversation is still open. There
right.
had to be some closure for the way you got out of that man's office.
But you know what? And another note, I'm also following the Ti and Tiny situation where the young lady who allegedly had messed around with them as well, who initially didn't even come out as saying she was a victim, who's coming out with all these alleged stories of rape and drugging
Hmm.
of which sounds very similar to what the storyline was when Phaedra was on Atlanta Housewives.
But yeah,
Uh, right, so it sounds very similar, and a lot of these people haven't even come out. And at this point, allegedly 30 women are coming out who have said they also went through this, and one dude is saying so. It worries me that somebody can say anything and put it into social media. There's no court case, there's no judge, there's no police record of any of this happening.
but
But
that's
you
what
can say that it
with
happened.
you saying that, that's the same thing I was saying. Like with this Me Too movement has now been going on for 3 years now. It take you taking this to the media for you to get something done at this point. I mean,
Right,
I understand if your questions aren't answered about it, but this specifically to me doesn't sound like harassment. That's a single. I call him the ultimate bachelor. He's the
right.
ultimate bachelor. He's got prestige. He's got
But he's a
power. He
bachelor
has.
though. But he's not married though.
He's not married. He's single. That's why he's a bachelor. So with him, and then during this pandemic, I'm I'm like kind of trying to step in his shoes and see where he's coming from. And even try to, even though he's not saying anything,
Hmm.
this man's single. The only people he's ever around because it's a pandemic is his staff,
Yeah.
right? So I'm trying to kind of like even like lighten up the load on. Yes, it's
A lot of
inappropriate
this
because
a
it's his
lot of
staff
these things
member.
a lot of these things weren't even allegedly during this pandemic time.
It was this girl was in November.
Of this one girl, but
Yes, this the one that was just on Nora O'Donnell. She said this happened in November.
mm.
So specifically on that case, I'm like, well, it's a pandemic. He has no real options. He can't just go out in the street and
So
meet
what is she
somebody.
saying happened? Because I didn't look at the interview. What
That
did she say happened?
okay. So one of the parts of her story that she said is that he brought up when he asked her to come in his office. So
Hmm.
they was in his office talking back and forth, which they probably do all the time. She was there for 4 years,
Yeah.
and he brought up her rape, that she had been raped before, right?
In
And was
their
asking her
conversation.
questions basically about her, how she felt about sex and all that kind of stuff. But trying to, I guess, and that, to me, it just seems like he was trying to feel out her comfort level after being raped
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
dating, because
Mm.
he was going to ask her out.
Right, right.
Okay, so that's how I'm trying to make that make sense in my head for what these questions, because he questioned her. It wasn't like he was like, take your drawers off, take your pants off, let's do this. He's
Right.
questioning you about your comfort level after being raped because he wants to ask you out.
It just makes me it makes me live like and
But
I'm
you,
just saying as a guy, I am still uncomfortable, and I'll say this even around my close women friends.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you a family member and like an immediate family member, I'm uncomfortable in this moment. I'm
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable around people who I know have been victimized. I'm uncomfortable around people who are underage, and not because I'm fearful of what I would do. I don't know where people are with their trauma. So I may say something or crack a joke that I've worked hard, not to be
But you
inappropriate.
know our demeanor. Who doesn't say anything sometimes that's inappropriate for the workplace?
Right,
So
but it's all in
that's
laughter.
what they
But
kept saying. The stuff that he kept saying was inappropriate. It was this and this and that. But did he sexually assault you? That's all I'm trying to get to. Because why is this on the damn news?
But you know what? You know what I think is happening? Like they did to Joe Biden when he was saying he was going to run. They tried to demean his character in this way, and it
But
didn't.
that's also why I think there's another angle to this that
Mm,
them far right folk, let's call them QAnon, let's call them Republicans, have gotten into these chicks' ears and
mm,
try to make up something to bring this man down, who has been the ride or die for New York this past
right,
year,
right.
and they're trying to corrupt his position for running for president.
Yeah. And that when as soon as because I first saw it on your page, and that's
Hmm.
what I kept saying. This is another one of those cases where a Democrat is about to be thrown under the bus. So I hope it doesn't stick because
Right.
he would be a good candidate. I guess out of everybody that's in office right now, who would be up next
And that's
outside
why
of
I'm actually
Kamala
happy that
Harris?
he has chosen not to resign. Don't resign. You shouldn't
Mm,
resign. Not for this, not for no accusations of misappropriate language. Are you kidding me? That is not
mm.
a reason for somebody to lose their job. Okay, I can apologize to you if you thought it was inappropriate. Thank you. Have a good day.
But that
Enjoy the
doesn't
rest of
mean
your
that you
damn
would
day.
get
But bitch,
canceled.
you're gonna be alone for the rest of your life and probably unemployable because no one can trust you no more.
Mm.
That's,
Yeah,
if that was your supervisor and now you see what you did to your supervisor, who wants to hire you?
yeah. I'm just I don't know how to feel about this because
Because now I can't even joke with you in the office. I can't say nothing to you in particular in the office because you might go to HR because
right.
you yourself thought it was inappropriate. Everybody else in the office laughed, but you thought it was inappropriate. I can't have you work for me. You're unemployable.
Right.
A
And now,
25-year-old unemployable woman. Sorry.
oh yeah. And it makes it and it's shameful that she would have to be the one that's unemployable. But
Hmm.
if you don't think it's funny, don't laugh. Don't be around
And
it.
once again, you should have, in the 4 year age of Me Too, you should have been woman enough at this point to reject his offer and let it be dead. If you don't want to date me, say no. No, thank you. And go
Right.
back to your goddamn desk. Now you're unemployed and no one's ever going to hire you. You might as
Because
well go ahead
we
and work
don't
for the women's minority organization because that's
so
it.
what was her position with him? Like
I
under
wish
her.
I knew.
I don't that's what I did when I tried to look it up, I
She
couldn't
and
find
several, I
what
mean, they got several pictures with them, very close together in
right.
pictures together. So you knew him at a comfort level that you could get in a picture like that with your arms wrapped around him. So
Because
I'm not trying to hear that you wasn't interested. Crap. You know he's
Because she
single.
was, but what if like I'm going on? Okay, she wasn't attracted to him. They were just colleagues and work friends. I get that, but
But
because
the
he hit
operative word
on
you
you
used there
doesn't
was
make
work
him
friends.
criminal.
Work friends. You should have
Right.
had the strength to say no. I'm not interested. Thank you anyway. Go back to your desk and get back to work. Now,
Or
if it
at
continues,
most,
then it becomes
right,
harassment.
right. But
But if
it,
this
but
is one instance we're talking about,
right.
no,
But
I'm
that's
not trying to
why.
hear any of this.
But that's why HR has so many rules around this. That's why because it gets sticky. But at the same time, when did I mean? I understand inappropriateness, but
But it was clear, the interesting part is that it's apparently been clear that y'all spoken about her rape before, because
uh,
why would he feel so comfortable bringing it up? And how does he know?
mm,
Y'all talked about this before. I broke that interview straight down. Like, why would he bring up your rape if he didn't know about it and you
but
talked about it
see,
before?
but see, those types of interviews, I don't even buy into them anymore because they're
Hmm.
set up by PR people. They're set up. and they don't ask certain questions,
I
and
mean,
they
she
ask
asked her,
these
"Did you accept his
questions.
apology?" Because he apologized if you took his words wrong. He apologized. I was like, he shouldn't have did that. But
But
whether
look
she
at what
takes it
happened
or
to
not, it
what
doesn't
was
matter
the
because this was one instance in one office with one person, and it wasn't repetitive. So it's
what was
not
the name?
harassment.
What was the name of the other senator? He used to be a comedian, but he turned into a senator.
Al Franklin.
Because Al Franklin, she accepted his apology, and
Hmm.
they still forced him to resign.
Right.
So it don't
Exactly.
matter.
And they're
Apology
comparing
don't
this to
matter no
that.
more.
They're
That's
comparing
what
this to that. Yep.
right. That's why a lot of people don't speak out or they don't
You remember I said Al
comment.
Franklin shouldn't have resigned either. He should
Oh,
have stayed right there because he was a good senator.
yep, 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 yep. Because it was the same situation. They were making jokes, and they were
Hmm.
inappropriate jokes. And most people look at it as inappropriate. But if it made you uncomfortable, go to HR,
Right.
not to Facebook.
And she did. She did go to whoever their HR person is and to their general counsel. That's why the
Mhm.
investigation is going because apparently they must have brought
Okay.
it to his attention, but it wasn't that heavy because it wasn't harassment. They probably said this ain't harassment. She just got propositions and she felt uncomfortable. Uncomfortableness is not harassment.
But it's still, and see, the word proposition to me is even too heavy for it. If he
Hmm.
flirted with you or
That's what I
asked
meant.
you
Not
out,
I said proposition because even if it was a proposition,
right?
that is not harassment.
Hmm.
I can propose something to you. Would you like to date me? That's a proposition.
Right, 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 right.
And you have the option of saying yay or nay.
But I'm real uncomfortable now with the method that people are following. You went straight from make it public to doing an interview. There's no court case. There were no charges filed. You did go to HR, but when you didn't like their response, you didn't go to the police department. You didn't get your lawyer. You didn't do
The
any. You
interesting
went
part is
straight to
where is
the.
Stormy Daniels?
Mm, yeah,
She's
yeah.
still a porn star, right? Nothing
Hmm.
changed. Her career ain't just blow up.
Well, I mean, she
Learn your.
said.
It's like learn your lessons.
Mm.
You should have learned your. As I said, Me Too been here for 4 years.
But with Stormy Daniels, that was a mutual.
It was,
She
but
didn't.
she
She
came
didn't.
out as with her position was to make it a negative thing, though, right?
Right, right.
But think when you do this and you make all this publicity for yourself that you were going to rise, you could start being in
She
some
probably
movie
got
stuff.
a couple more
That
dollars
ain't
for her sex.
happened. You still a
I
porn
know she
star.
did a sex. Yeah. Well, she was a dancer. Was she an escort or a
She was a
dancer?
porn star.
Was she a porn star?
Yes, she hits movies.
Because I thought the movies came after the allegation. Oh, but I don't follow white strippers,
Well, that
so
makes you a prostitute in any case.
right.
You got paid to
Do
have sex
not
with them.
shame the sex workers. We're
I'm
not
not.
shaming
I'm
the
just
sex
saying,
workers.
regardless of what it was, whether you were a
Right.
porn star or a dancer, you turned into a prostitute when you accepted money to sleep with them.
But
Bam.
I'm it's happening
A
to
contracted porn star, because apparently there was paperwork.
now. I'm not gonna compare the T.I. and Tiny to Cuomo. I mean, we can't really compare them because
Yeah, one
he's a
it did have
public
something to do
servant.
with assault. Hmm.
Right, and Cuomo is a public servant, so you have to
Hmm.
still look at this differently. But at the same time, it's strange how you can make a because even with Ti and Tiny, it didn't start out with blaming him for anything. She was initially mad at Bottoms, the mayor of Atlanta,
Hmm.
for allowing Ti a platform to be able to speak out on injustice and because she didn't give her that same platform. That's where
Hmm.
all this started from.
I
And
haven't
then
even
it
been
went
keeping up on that
to
because I got a feeling they ain't gonna go nowhere.
what the Ti, but the
Hmm.
damages being done, that show was canceled.
Yeah.
Ti and Tiny and the Family Hustle, that show was canceled. So
Oh,
that's
I
their
didn't know that.
livelihood in the middle of a pandemic. He ain't torn. She not torn. They probably still getting residuals from music, but not that much. How you doing, sir?
Doing good. How are you, sir?
Mr. Reid. So we were just going over some political mess and foolishness in our hot topic section. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. And yourself? How are you doing,
Doing
Nate?
good. I'm doing good. This virtual world has me like I get easily agitated, and I'm trying to like bring
Right.
back. That's why I don't watch the news that much anymore.
Yeah.
So we got Dr. Reid on the show today. Let's first just get all the house cleaning out. Let us know who you are and what you do.
Yes. I'm Dr. Oliver T. Reid, the writing coach, and I help entrepreneurs, speakers, and coaches write their books fast. I usually really work as a writing coach to get what's outside, you know, out of their framework. People
Okay.
that are doing stuff, busy, coaching, teaching, and
Mhm.
need to create a literary project and just
Okay.
don't know where to start. I help them do that in under 30 days, man. So I'm an award best-selling author and just happy to be servicing people.
So how long have you been writing?
Yeah, I've been writing for years. I've been writing since I was in the 6th grade. Not trying to, a little bit before that as well, but not trying to give my whole entire age away. But I've been doing it for a very, very long time.
It seems to be a field that's always been popular, but somehow in the last like 5 or 6 years or so, probably even a little bit longer than that, everybody is wanting to use this type of platform to get their story out. And unfortunately, a lot of us aren't the best writers. Like for me, I don't know how I made it to college because I am not I can write a term paper, but in terms of creative writing, that is much harder than just writing a research paper. That's easy because you got a format, you know what your margins are and all that. But
Yeah.
creative writing, for me, it seems like a struggle. And with all the artists that I'm interviewing, a lot of them had that hesitation in the beginning because, especially when you're telling a truth,
Yeah.
that seems to be the hardest thing. So in terms of the technical writing skills or just the ability to get their story out, what seems to be the most difficult?
Yeah. A lot of people have to overcome the fear of writing.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell everybody
Yeah.
it took me 10 years to write my first book. Like,
Okay.
even though I was a writer and doing all this other stuff, I didn't deem myself as a writer. I just felt myself doing it by way of
Right.
writing poetry. Then in the 80s and 90s, hip hop, I started rapping. So I was
Okay.
writing. And so for the biggest thing is that and when I did realize it, it was a lot of fear and anxiety around it.
Mm-hmm.
As artists, a lot of times people don't understand us. Sometimes we don't even understand ourselves. We're just
Right.
kind of like, hey, trying to find a place to fit in. So one of the things I do is it's almost like putting in reps or exercise, and you have to get cool with telling
Mm-hmm.
your truth in small increments. A lot of times
Right.
people want to just blot it out. Want just
Will write
everything to happen.
everything instead of finding a focus. And I am guilty of that. I'm working with a great editor right now for a book I'm writing, and that's have been my hesitation, wanting to put everything in the kitchen sink in that first book. And a lot of individuals like yourself, coaches and ghostwriters, they
Yeah.
always tell me normally when they meet somebody who's even gotten to the point of writing, like what they hand over to them, it's normally like 5 or 6 books that they're looking at.
Yeah. One
So
of the
they
biggest
want to
things.
put all that in the first one.
Yeah, I always tell people, and one of the steps in my milk writing system, I created a whole system to show people how I've done
It's called the what? What
milk
system?
milk writing system.
Okay.
And one of the biggest things, you remember that old commercial, like you got milk,
Mm-hmm.
and so for a lot of times we jump off of one thing and try to
It's
do all
simple.
these other things, and we don't milk it. What I found out, Nate, in doing researching about milk, that it takes about 72 hours just for milk to leave the farm.
Okay.
And then it has to go through other testing. The same thing with writing. One of the things I tell people all the time is that you don't have to finish to be finished. You got this 900-page novel that needs to be 9 or 10 books.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody's reading over 180 pages, typically anyway. Your fans will kind of maybe go a little bit further than that. But most people need 140 pages. They
You
want
want me to
it.
put my whole life story in like a little paperback, little manual? Sir, my life is spectacular.
I
I
believe it.
need volumes.
I believe it. That's why we got volume 1, volume 2. And when I realized that, I was like,
Mhm.
hey, you don't have to be finished to be finished. And when I
Mhm.
realized that, you can put a be continued. I just wrote a children's book. I could have wrote a whole, long journey about this kid
Get them
dealing
with
with
the
COVID.
cliffhanger. I get you.
Yes, sir.
So how much or what percentage of your job as a coach is therapy?
Yeah, a lot of it. I think, my background is in mental health anyway. So I think I would say.
Oh, you about to blow up, sir. You about to blow up.
Mental health. So I think it is really about 60-40.
Mm. So
Really
how much time do you spend getting that initially, getting those things out of the way so they can get to the actual writing?
Yeah, a lot.
Is that a part of the process?
That's a part of the process. Once people come to me, I actually have a strategy call. And in that strategy call, it's kind of breaking their mindset. And I'm not saying in a bad way, just like there's a lot of barriers when we first start talking. There's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, or just hype excitement. And then I got to just pull you into focus. Either way, like you're so excited about it, but what's your we don't know what's your message. And usually when we start dealing with the messaging process is when I'm dealing with your mind and your mindset about your project. And when I say milk it, I'm like, I have a famous quote, like milk your crisis too. Bring your crisis to the table. Everybody wants to bring the success thing, but you got to have a balance. So in that mental space, trying to get them to do this dance with what you've been through, your story, and where you want to go, but also give us enough in between.
Mm-hmm. It is a So I'll speak from my point of view. So I had in my mind, I'm an artist. That's create your own masterpiece. That's my motto for my life. But when it came to writing, it was a little bit more difficult because I didn't want to start off writing something fictional. I wanted to write, start, if I'm going to do this, I wanted to start from my own perspective. And it was really, and me sitting down talking to my editor, the therapy sessions definitely came because I was worried about the people who I was writing about. And that's how I looked at it. So my mindset had to change because I was telling my story and these people were just parts of that story. Yeah. So that was the first part. I had to get over what they would think. And most people don't publish their book until somebody has passed away because they are that uncomfortable feeling about selling certain things and how is that person going to be affected by it. Is that a big part of the fear in writers, or how often do you come across that person?
I get it all the time. There's a big part of the fear. A lot of times people are writing as a reactive measure. And I try to start teaching people. I believe everybody in nature have a book. If you live this life and you have the capacity, you need to tell your story to pass it on as a legacy. A lot of times people don't understand the oldest book in the world, or the most, I would say, not so much oldest, but the most frequently used book in the world is the Bible, and it's been repurposed millions of times. And it has never got old. Your book will never get old. When they, I've written over 40-something books, and I've helped, hundreds of authors write their books, right? And one of the biggest things that I've actually found to be true, that when you blow the dust from my bones, my children's children will be able to use this book to educate, to hear my story, but then also it can provide a passive income for them. I can leave it. So a lot of times people don't look at books as, hey, this is something that can pass on to my generation. A lot of times they look at sometimes the women, they don't have Aunt Sarah's recipe because they didn't put it in the cookbook before she passed. And so, now people are like, man, I wish I would have known how to cook this macaroni and cheese that Aunt Sarah used to make. I don't know. Something simple as that, as a family heirloom history. So I get people who are in crisis. A lot of times they, writing is therapy. So I walk them through that whole process and say, hey, milk it. I want to talk about, everything, and then break it up into volumes and get people to be comfortable. And also it's painful because you have to also relive a lot of this stuff when you're really telling your story. It gets your secret sauce. Like right now, everything trending right now is what? Coming to America movie tonight, right?
Right.
But people are not looking at somebody had to write the script. Somebody had to write the script. This thing is 30-something years old, about to be reinvented, about to hit the best whatever platform in the world, Amazon. And look, remember the whole thing when you had McDonald's and you had McDowell's? And the only thing that separated them was the sauce.
Okay.
We got, and so
and the shape of the arch.
The arch. And the arch, and so what I try to tell every artist and every writer, develop your secret sauce, and a lot of that is overcoming your fear and challenges.
But it's difficult, but it's so rewarding because even once you've written a book, there's a business within it, because you could take it and take that manuscript and write a screenplay with it, or become a playwright with it, or have it adapted into TV, film, stage, or just workshop it. I have a lot of friends who have written manuals or books, and now they're on the whole workshop, public speaking, inspirational speaker circuit. So it's so many different things that you can do with a book. You're taking it in another direction. You're helping other people to do the same thing. So
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how much of a business there is in writing, and then you don't have to stay stuck in a room writing or typing out, drafts of a story. There's so many different things you can, just the
Exactly.
same way they work an album. There's certain things you can do, and you can travel with it, and it's, I didn't even think about the passive income, because a book doesn't expire. People may not buy it frequently, but it doesn't expire. It'll always be something that can be printed or
Yeah.
and sent out or mailed out.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about writing a book is that I also teach entrepreneurs, speakers, and coaches. A lot of them are already speaking already. They're already doing things. That's my
Right.
ideal clients, right? And from a standpoint that they don't have books, and you're not only leaving money on the table, you're leaving opportunity. People have invited me to come speak and to do workshops, seminars, whatever, because they got my book first, not because they know me. But when they're going down the line and saying, "Who do I want to keynote?" I'd rather have a person with the book that's out, or somebody that's saying, "Hey, I'm an expert in this." So when
Well,
you
it
actually
it,
write,
it does, and I'm noticing people who may not be an expert in something, because they wrote the book, they then are looked at as an expert in something, which is scary,
it's scary. It's
because you
true.
don't know who you get. So I would say at least be who you are in that book. Like
Yes.
at least be that person, because you can get into a lot of trouble, and it will hurt you subsequently when you go to write another book, or when you're trying to, get, because people talk, they talk. So at
Yeah.
least be about the business that you're writing about.
Yeah, it's so important, because one of the things I always say is that I am a book. Instead of
Mhm.
writing a book, I teach my clients, I teach people I work with to become that book and be authentic.
Right,
Because at the end
right.
of the day, I tried to become and becoming, what I wanted. Because a lot of people just throw a book out. They don't get a coach. They don't, I found this out,
Mhm.
with, training, and just from a standpoint of just, exercise. That trainer wants you to get your form down first,
Mhm. Mhm.
because you can lift up. It's not how much you can lift. Are you lifting it correctly? Are you putting your book out there correctly?
Mhm.
And really, like you said, which is a great point, a lot of people will misrepresent themselves inside of their book because they didn't have the coaching. They just want to put something out. And you want to make sure that, hey, that when they Google you, you're actually doing what you say you're doing. You're
Mhm.
actually not plagiarizing. You're giving
Right.
credit where credit is due, and you're actually walking it out.
Because you're then hurting it for other people, because a lot of these people have self-published their books, and for a number of years self-published books had a really bad name, because people didn't trust the person behind the book,
Mm-hmm.
because often a lot of those people had ghostwriters, which is nothing wrong with that, but you at least have to know the topic that you're writing about. In terms of being a writer outside of everything else, how do you put time into what you're doing while still helping other people?
Yeah, it's really developing a system. I practice I practice what I'm coaching, and even
Mm-hmm.
this month I'm doing something called March Milkness, off of like March Madness. So if you follow
Okay.
me on Instagram, you'll see that I'm going to be dropping a product every week that I'm currently doing.
Okay.
Everybody on my email list, everybody I'm coaching, I'm challenging them that even though I'm coaching, to show you it can be done. Like while I'm doing that, so I have 2 books in the works this month that's going to be
Mm-hmm.
coming out, and I show that you can do that. So just keeping myself aligned with what I'm saying, it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like, yeah, I'm saying it, but I'm doing. And I think that keeps me on the cutting cusp of being able to say, hey, you know what, it can be done, and how to be done. And I teach people a lot of times that writing is speaking. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times, people who are singers, who are artists, you're doing already, who are out in the public forum, you don't have time to sit down at your Mac or PC and type everything out. I teach you creative ways of how to capture what you're already doing and then turn that into a product.
So what is something that you want to venture into in terms of being a writer, um, that you may not have written about yet, or taken it to another platform with your writing? Is it anything you want to do?
Oh man, you're a great interviewer, man. You let the cat out of the bag. I'm working out with a guy now, and I'm excited. Parts of my life, brother, that I didn't want to touch before, that I'm really about to expose to the world. And so I'm working on some movie writing and working on my first movie in the background. So it's one of those things that I'm in the background.
Well, I'm an actor too, sir. So when you're thinking about a person, this writer, Lord, I only need a cameo. I'm not, there's no such thing as small parts.
Exactly.
But that's a natural evolution for a lot of writers. What preparation? Because please, as writers, do not waste your money and time trying to make a movie if you have not done the work.
Let me say this.
For example, but what preparation are you putting into it?
I love it, Nate, because it's great. Even though I'm a great writer, and I say this with the humbleness of me going through bad experiences and evolving as a writer. I'm not writing my own script.
Right.
I'm getting somebody else to write my script. Yes, I'm going to have creative, executive producer write, all that stuff that comes along with it, protecting my brand. But I realize that you have to put your hands or put something in the hands of a specialist. All right. I'll put it like this: a basketball in my hand, bro, is at the most $100 or so. I'll take that same basketball and I put it in LeBron James' hand. I put it in, Allen Iverson. I put it in whoever hand. The value goes up because of who hands it. So I'm like, hey, I don't know anything about movies, writing scripts. I'm a writer. I hired a brother who absolutely Joe, who does this all the time, award winning. Say, hey, take my, my baby and show me what to do with it.
And it's and trust, it's fine. Like, one of my favorite writers who did that is she wrote Waiting to Exhale, How Stella Got Her Groove Back, and she was not too proud to then get a screenwriter or sell her the rights to her book to a screenwriter in order to have it. Because if you write in novels all the time, you may not be the best screenwriter. It may be possible, but I want us as artists to stop being so insular, like I got to do everything in-house, because then the quality of your work, and we're not going to say this person's name out loud because we're not going to hate on each other anymore, but I'm just saying the quality of your work is affected when you don't put the proper people in place.
Yes.
You still, the contracts helps you to keep getting paid from that. So it's not like you go get any less money, but spread that wealth. There's somebody out here right now that needs a screenwriting job. Let that person who does that for a living, who is great at that, and you can still learn how to do it. So eventually, down the line, I don't want to hear you saying you gave to the. I want you to say, well, I wrote this script, at some point, and that's how you climb and grow, because you're learning the process. Yeah, and a lot of us waste a lot of money and a lot of time.
Yes.
Especially making a film is really, I don't care how good the script is, it's very expensive.
Yep.
Even if it's the worst script in the world, it's still very expensive. And I'm raising my hand. I made that mistake in trying to jump out there. But in terms of you finding your team to do these things, how did you seek out a screenwriter?
Yeah, it was amazing because, I'm believing that there's no thing wasted. And the guy who's writing my script, I was a guy out of LA, but we grew up together in Charlotte, and we actually grew up together. And what's the powerful part of it is he saw me live my story. At the same time, not even knowing that he was going to become a producer. He produces movies, writes scripts, but he also movie producer, all this other stuff. He's got great accolades. And we meshed because I wanted somebody to embody, to really understand from a cultural standpoint. I'm about to get into some deep stuff in this movie. And so I wanted to be able to find it. So we kind of collided, and God just put in my heart, like, this is the dude.
Okay.
And it was like, it wasn't like, a second thought. I came to 2 or 3 times. Like, people don't understand when you're a creative, I'm always doing 4 or 5 different things. So this has been a work, like when people see this, it's probably going to be about 10 years or 15 years worth of work on the back end where I went to get one screenwriter, but he was more of a movie producer, but he tried to do it for me. And we realized, no, that's not quite it. We're kind of like,
and everything ain't for everybody.
Right. And so we like, no. And then I moved on and then waited until we got reconnected. And it's just like, boom, he's going through it now. What I'm learning, Nate, is at the same time I'm learning his format. I'm learning how he does it, how he thinks, how he takes ideas that I give him and just boom. So it's learning. So one day I do want to I wrote plays before, but I do want to get into that script writing. But it was kind of like I built my team by trial and error and my gut. I think people don't do that enough. You know, even if people give you a reference and people say, "Hey, go to this person," that person might not be the person for you.
Right. It might not be the good team together. But this is it's a process. And what I'm learning as an artist, because I come from stage. I went to school to be an actor, and I learned patience.
Yeah.
You know, in my 20s, I felt like I could do everything. I was doing 2 and 3 shows at a time, and everything was overlapping, and the quality and the integrity in my work suffered. And by the time I got to 30, I was tired, physically tired. But at the same time, I realized if you just pace yourself and you can have multiple things going on, just pace yourself so you don't feel like this one project, you put everything into it and I got to do it now and it got to happen in a certain time frame. And it's great to have goals, but make sure you space that goal out so you can accomplish it without ruining your life in the process.
Yes.
Or without blocking out everything in your life, unless that is, the goal, unless you have a contract or you got the luxury of, blocking out all that time. But just pace yourself. It's no right. That's why I've interviewed a lot of artists. Shout out to Miss Johnson. She sent me a lot of artists, and I've learned writers specifically. But I've learned a lot about the patience of being an artist. You don't have to just rush and get everything done. Pace yourself. So the quality and the integrity in your work is always there. When did you know that writing was going to be a business for you?
Yeah, and this is a whole long story. This was this year. It was a little bit of last year because I'm a motivational speaker, coach, multi-best-selling international, national. Just kind of doing some things.
Just dropping a little accolades. We're cleaning up later.
Right.
Just drop it.
And I'm like, hey. And then I was working with my brother, my business coach, who was like, man, I had become all these different coaches throughout the years, and did all these things. And in ministry and all this stuff. I just did all this stuff. And he said to me, man, dude, you are the writing coach, man. Everything you did. Because when I was a relationship coach, I wrote books. When I was a speaker, I wrote books. When I was preaching, I wrote books. When I was rapping, I wrote raps. So that's been the constant denominator. So was it evolving at the end of the year last year? It was like, you know what? I'm going to embrace who I really am because that's what I do. And I always help people do it. So then that's when I started realizing, this is a business for me. I'm looking at all these other things on the outside. I'm like, man, let me create myself to do this and realize that I'm an artist at heart. I'm a writer to the heart. I am motivated to the heart. I see things differently. How you see it as an artist, my filters are different. And when I embraced that and then started to realize I don't have to do anything else but be Dr. Oliver T. Reid, the writing coach. Now, I still might talk about.
What were you trying to do when you were fighting these creative urges?
Man, I was your solution coach, which I wanted this. It was funny because I wanted to, what's the solution coach? I'm going to bring solutions to everybody who needs it. I'm going to help them do, but I was still helping them write. I was still doing all those. A lot of times in our culture, and me and my brothers talk about this, we feel like we have to create this, shiny thing, right? And I realized that I didn't have to do that anymore. Then I was the relationship architect. Then I started moving into relationships. I was still writing books on relationships and creating games in relationships, but I was still writing. The common thing was I was still writing.
But you were trying to, and most artists get in trouble for that because they try to be everything because they're stuck on that 9-to-5 mentality.
Yes.
Making somebody else wealthy.
Yep.
We often, as artists, make people very wealthy, but we're doing a disjustice to ourselves because we're trying to do everything but be an artist. We got to make money. I got to survive. I got to keep a roof over my head. And we do all these different things and don't realize we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, but it's just take away all that other stuff and just go to the core of what like you said, the common denominator.
Yeah, and my wife told me something one day, so powerful. She said, when it will happen for you, it will happen for you. And it was something that was really, really powerful. With that said, it was almost like I realized that now it's happening because now I'm like, I don't have to create all this stuff that I'm not. Not that I don't do those things, but I would do all those things to get back to doing what I'm doing now.
because you would spend this much time on you and all that other time building up that facade.
Yeah.
And that facade is costly, is time consuming, and it just doesn't pay off. It doesn't pay off. And you gotta really make sure, you just gotta focus on you. And I know it's scary. Being an artist is being an entrepreneur, and it's very scary because it's almost like getting up, getting ready, and walking out the house naked every day.
Yeah.
And people don't understand how you strip yourself every day trying to focus on your artistry, but it's just a preparation. And as your wife said, it is going to happen. But in the meantime, prepare for it. Do the work, put in the work now. And I regret I did a lot of work becoming an artist, studying as an artist, but I really didn't put the preparation into what my goals were.
Yeah.
I was making everybody else's dreams come true. So
and it's so important that you said that was so powerful, is really getting a strategy and getting a system. A lot of people don't want to, and I don't do this just because what I do, but I realize a lot of people don't want to get coaches. They get coaches for everything else, But when it comes to the artistry, when it comes to creating a book, I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want to," why would I?
That's the arrogance. The arrogance.
I can just go to Amazon and put it up. I can just go to why would I need? And then I'm like, how is that working for you?
You know how many, specifically writers, I know so many writers who had that attitude, who published a book, who put it up on all these platforms, only for somebody like myself to say, you know how many grammatical errors in this book? You know how many different books are in this one book right here? Like, we just don't want people to tell us what to do because we feel like we're in what we're doing. So why do I need somebody to tell us? And then we become cheap. We don't want to pay somebody to tell us what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So until we make all those mistakes, and then we gotta, recoup that and then start all over again.
Then you get back right.
Is it what has been the difficulty? And then talking about all this, what has been the difficulty for you in keeping yourself motivated?
Yeah, because right now, and I've been doing this for years, that I like I told you, I got several different things that I'm doing. I also work a full-time job, which is in a giving field, human services field.
It's benefactor. That's your benefactor.
Yes.
That's what we call them, benefactor.
Benefactor. That's my vehicle, like somebody I heard say. My transport.
Right, exactly.
So it's a very giving type of field. So it's social services, it's human services, directing and overseeing things.
Okay.
At the same time, that's a challenge because I still have to attend things with family. I still have to make sure my clients get what they need. So just having that balance a lot of times and maintaining that balance is something that I'm working towards because I don't know how, how the grind is real. I don't know how to sometimes turn that off.
Well, I mean, at one point, like when you go to a job and just remember somebody came up with that. Somebody's wife or significant other is lounging right now during the pandemic because of the work you're putting in.
Yeah.
So you have to come home and do that same amount of work. And over time, the plan is to do less of this and do more of that. But you have to make that plan and that strategy and trust. I'm speaking like I know this, but I'm living it in the moment because it's really hard. That 9 to 5 is a dope that you can't buy on none of these corners out here. It's a strong dope, especially when you're making good money doing it.
Yes,
it's a good dope.
It is. And just saying, hey, the challenge is don't get comfortable.
Right.
And that's why I'm like, hey, and that's why I'm still producing. Like, it's almost like, hey, I'm producing because it's in me to do. I don't write books to make money. I don't write books. It's a passion. Before I even knew I was a writer, I was writing. So I always try to keep myself in my mentality to keep doing it. Sharpening my skills, keep writing. It's my way to give back to people. It's my way to give back to myself. It's also my love affair. Writing is a love affair. She's faithful. I can just get in there, and just flow. And that's the thing that you do. I always say when you find your passion, it sounds so cliche, but that's so true. When you really find what you do in your sleep. But I was going back to what we said earlier, Nate. I was looking on the outside when the writing was there.
The aesthetics. You were into the aesthetics of what it looked like to be a writer versus the everyday application of being a writer. But that's entrepreneurship 101.
Yeah.
Like you have to live what you're doing. you can't just, you can't fake it, because when you start faking it, it's gonna cost you a lot.
Yeah.
It will cost you a lot, and sometimes you gotta sacrifice. The sacrifice is in you preparing to do whatever it is your art form is. But looking at yourself as an entrepreneur, the same things you would do in starting a business, you have to be an artist and do the same thing. You have to set your hours. You gotta make a budget. You gotta remember to, all the money you make ain't your money. You gotta pay yourself from that. All those things that we take for granted, or we just overlook, or we learn once we've hit rock bottom for the third, fourth, fifth time. But you have to, put that energy into preparing yourself and learning. You sound like a researcher. So doing all the research that you need to prepare yourself, so you know what you're talking about, but you also know what you're doing.
Yes.
You don't want to just be blinding your way.
Right.
Ooh, them 20s, you be so dumb in your 20s. I'ma just live life to the fullest.
Live life. Can't nobody tell you that.
Right. By the time you're 30, FICA is looking real pathetic at that point.
Right.
But in terms of you building this, and you spoke a little bit about legacy, and a lot of my students ask me what that is, but I tell people your legacy is what you do on a day-to-day basis in preparation for it. You can't really define your legacy in terms of the end result. You just put the day-to-day work in it. And you building this for your children's children. What are some of the things that you're doing, or the strategies that you're doing in preparation?
Yeah, producing content that I don't own. And what I mean by that is I don't own. I mean, we as writers, we want to be like, hey, I wrote this, but I want to activate. Right now, my goal was really to find 100 entrepreneurs, speakers, and coaches that I can pour into. Why? Because I know they may have 1 million other people that they pour into, and realize that, hey, that I'm a seed, and I want to be reproducing other people, not only just from my media family to the people that are around my loved ones, but hey, I want to be able to turn on the TV and see somebody else get that. Hey,
but everybody wants their name on stuff. They're not willing to put in that work to prepare. So you become a commodity to people versus a hardship for them.
Exactly.
But so that's smart though. That's
I want to be able to multiply, but then also, at the end of the day, when you really think about wealth, the people that are really wealthy, you don't even know their name a lot of times. You don't even see them, but they've been impacted, they've influenced so many different people. And I want to be able to say, when you blow the dust from my bones, there's a legacy. And then I'm producing pure content that really says, okay, cool. And as I work with people, I'm seeing them publish their books in under 30 days. I worked with somebody recently, 30 days came in. She was a great individual, had her own practice, amazing in her own right, but saw the value, got with me, 30 days, her book was launched. So it's always like, it's not about having content, because you can have so many different, people got journals and paper stickies and all this stuff, but the system of putting it together is where that's my next goal, to create a legacy of writers, a legacy of people that say, hey, I can do it fast, I can get this stuff done, and have quality content.
Because it comes, I guess, the speed. Most of the writers I talk to, the speed in which they write came over time, when they wasn't rushing themselves. It just came over time. So it's possible and to have a great piece of work in a month or two, but just get the process down. Have that coach that can give you the pointers, so it doesn't take you 10 years. But that's, a lot of us, we got to learn that lesson the hard way, unfortunately. In terms of the other projects that you want to do outside of the physical writing and the physical coaching, where are you at with building that part of yourself?
Yeah, one of the things is really now step into the movie platform, because I really want to take the content. And one of the things I show people how to do is take a lot of different things and do one thing with at least to 10, 17 different things, only using that one product. I'm holding my iPhone, that they slowly give you iPhone 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, change a couple of features. It's a great, people hate, I'm not going to, that's a genius idea. They break it down into bite-sized pieces. So what I'm doing now is, how do I do it? Like, I created a whole book this time called Writing Over Spilled Milk. And basically what I'm showing people in this system, or in this book, is a system. Rather than writing a book on whatever I could write about, I'm saying, hey, I'm going to give you guys tools and the nuggets to take what works for me and then reproduce it. I'm also working on, as you see, is going to be dropping one of the other things, dropping my new merch coming out. Everything I do is for a reason, and it's symbolic of something. This whole pen is
That's a slick shirt. That's a slick shirt.
Thank you, brother. And
where do we find them at?
Oh, you're going to find it in my new website, but you're going to also see it. You're going to see it this month drop, and you'll be able to get some other stuff. We're going to have some stuff that.
I mean, I do like that shirt.
We're writer, and it's all the world. It's the clock. It's everything, and I show people how to message yourself and say, hey, everything about my brand, I want it to mean something purposeful and meaningful.
Where did you learn branding and marketing?
Just out, really the Lord kind of just showed me. Then running with people, running with some coaches, like Kelly Cole, running with, Kelly Cole. We do a lot together. This brother is dope, super marketing genius. We just started working in this trial and error. It came from just watching and just saying, hey, but even back in the day, I was always a t-shirt guy or a merch guy before I even knew that. And just from a creative standpoint, to say, hey, you may not buy my book, but you may get the mug.
Look at that, Brent. See that just you just said it ready. Just prepared. That preparation meets opportunity, and it just explodes. And you can't help but to be successful. Yeah. And that's really the secret. People think it's some magical code or amount of money you have to have, but it's really just that preparation. And just when the opportunity comes, you have everything ready to go, pushing that go button.
Yeah, behind my computer now, there's books I've written, there's notepads, from the standpoint, I'm always, from a standpoint, just trying to keep things as the Lord gives it to me on a day-to-day basis. I'm always in my phone, putting a note down. I'm always writing something down, because at the end of the day, I realize it may not be for me. Because it came to me doesn't mean I have to do it. I'm learning that more and more. I'm learning to do this right here. Pass it on.
The filter game is as an artist, because I did so many different mediums, I had to learn how to filter. Say no. I had to learn the value of no and why I was saying no. Not just because you're tired, but this is a temporary project. This is long term. This is going to take this amount of time. This I can't do. I can't fit that in. And learn how to edit yourself as you're working, as you're going, so you're not taking them big steps.
You brought something, man, that really, really powerful, man. I love your show. I love this vibe. One of the things that
Thank you.
I had to really create, I was listening to you guys earlier, just great conversation, was I had to create something. I talk about this in one of my books, to create a to-no list, not a two KNO, but the two NO, which means purposely say stuff that you're going to say no to. If it's outside of your lane, no. Sometimes, we can, we can do it. But I learned sometimes when you're not in your lane, and you're not doing things in the simplicity of what you do, and you're trying to expand too quick, you're all out of your lane. And I think I literally now created a list that helps me to kind of detour from distraction by just saying, this is what I'm going to say no to, right? Okay, if I do anything free, I have to demand something else. Now, I just dropped a nugget for somebody. I hope they caught that. If I do something free, then I got to demand your time. I don't mind not charging you, but are you willing to put the time in? If you're not willing to put the time in, then I'm not going to give it to you for free.
And it can mean anything. For example, right now I'm not an A-list or even a B-list actor, but if I'm doing something for free, you better know I'm gonna have a table sitting out there for every performance, either selling my merchandise. I make jewelry. I do consulting work. So I have to be able to either be in that program or set up a table outside, for intermission or before and after the show. So you gotta define that, and that's my no. Part of my no list is I don't do those multi-layer marketing schemes. And I call them schemes. But a lot of entrepreneurs feel like I got to get these multiple streams of income, but those multiple streams should be things that you do yourself.
Yeah.
Like you should be doing those things. It's just like buying stock. Why would you buy stock in something that you don't use?
Yeah.
Like that's just crazy. It should be something that you are utilizing. But
it's funny because that's so true. It's one of those things that I always say, I help people. I'm from the South, from Charlotte, right? I live in the DMV now. But one of the things that I always say, we used to say back in the day, like, hey, man, I'm fitting to go. I'm fitting to do this. I'm fitting to do whatever. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I want to move people out of that kingdom of fitness. You know, you've been wanting to do it for so long because you're trying to do everything else
Mm-hmm.
for what you created to do. And one of the things that we have to really look at, man, when it comes to writing your book, I help people, man, that have taken their book who are coaches, and then I say, okay, now you have this book, and you can move and do this in another whole way. Create a whole movement around it. Create a whole something around it. I love what your search said, create your masterpiece. You know, everything that I do, I actually talk to my design team. They design this. It wasn't my creativity per se of drawing it out. They took what was inside of my head and manifested it. I always say you never know what the next level of your story. I got all these books. None of them have been a New York best-selling time book yet. But once you hit one plateau, what people don't understand, once you get everything out and you get hot, what's the song? Back then you didn't want it. Now I'm hot, you all on. But if you if you haven't
that
written,
one opportunity that's over here that gets these things over here seen. I get you.
Yep. That's what I tell people, write it. Like, get it out. Quit saying I'm gonna write it next year. Get your stuff done, because that book, how many movies, best-selling movies come out of books? I can't even name it. It's just endless.
Yeah. And some of our favorite movies, people don't realize, was a book first.
Yep.
And you know, that's why I brought up her name just jumped out of my head, Waiting to Exhale and Hostile, because she was considered an urban novelist, and somebody believed in her book and took it to the next level.
Yep.
You know, The Color Purple, all these things that started out as just somebody being creative, and then somebody discovered it and it took it to another platform.
Yep.
So my next question for you is, book number 1 compared to book 40, or what I think you said 40 at this point. How is Dr. Reid different? Where are you different?
Way different. My first book.
What happened in this transition?
My first book, man. Listen, it was a struggle. It was awful. It was literally terrible. Like my first book, the editor didn't do their job. I like what you're saying. You said earlier about having a good editor. I paid all this money for this editor. I wrote my first book. I was unemployed. I paid all this money for the editor. It wasn't right. The cover design wasn't correct. The formatting wasn't correct. It was published for entire years. And I never to this day received a dime off my first book. I had to repurpose it, get with somebody else, repurpose it, resubmit it, re-put it out, relaunch it. And that's what said to me, I'm going to milk this crisis. I'm going to be to somebody else what I should have had. I should have been able to call Oliver and say, hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and pay you the money, because we try to be cheap. Let me go ahead and pay you the money, invest in your program. No, I was trying to do it myself.
It would have probably took you a little bit longer to get it finished, but you would have been able to be proud of that moment. So now there's a book out there that you're not even proud of.
Yep. I'm talking about to the point where I had to, threaten, almost go to litigation for you to take it down. And I never got any profits from it. I learned a lot then. I learned, again, the whole model that I said earlier. Put it in the hand of a specialist. Go to somebody that can get done or done it before. So I think now I actually persevered. What helped me through book 1 was that I realized that I wasn't doing this for the money. I didn't hit bestsellers list my first. I was just like so depressed. Like, I put all this energy, but I still kept doing it, because you got to realize that your book never gets old. So you can always reach a certain plateau with your book. That's what people don't understand. You can relaunch it, you can repurpose it, you come out again. And so now at book 40, I have a system to where it's not, I do more with less now. And I don't say it in an arrogant way. I say it in a humble way. I'm able to produce books left and right and help people do it because I got a system that works. And so that's the difference between book 1 and book 40.
So I'm definitely gonna have to hit you up after this, because it's been a process, and it's more so me getting out of my own way, and not anytime you go from this art form to this art form, there's a little hesitation, because you don't know, well, this is not really my lane, but I need this lane to get through this creative energy I'm trying to put out there. And I think a lot of us spend a lot of time shoulda, coulda, woulda, dreaming about something versus just making it happen. But people don't realize the making it happen is the hardest part of it. That's the hardest part, because you still are holding on to some of that hesitation, while really going through the difficult part of creating a book. And I know for me, I know that first one, once I get that first one out, it's going to be over because I'm going to be wanting to write
Oh, yeah.
everything. But speaking to that fear of writing, that is something that I fought against because I had a college professor who said, "Do you have a phobia of writing?" And it wasn't because what I was writing was so horrible, but I would get out of writing. I just would get out of it. I would do, I was the hardest working person in the theater department because I'm not writing up here.
Yeah.
So everything else made up for that lack right there. But as an adult, it's so much I want to say, it's so much I want to express, it's so much I want to share. And it seems like I can do this all day. But this pays at some point, but if how much more powerful would it be if I had it in a book form, something that I could sell outside of an event that I'm speaking at or a play that I'm performing at and have that type of, knowledge where somebody could take me home and they don't necessarily have to tune in every Friday.
Yeah.
But I want y'all to tune in every Friday, but I'm just saying, I've always looked at authors in awe because it takes a strong person to be able to, even if it's something fictional or not from their personal experience, it's that level of creativity, especially if you're consistently doing it, it's magical to me. I can learn lines and walk across stage the right way, but the person who wrote those lines, I'm in love with August Wilson. And I'm always looking at an author's brain and where's this coming from? Because sometimes it ain't from your real life. Sometimes it's out of experience or out of something you've walked across, in life. But who are those writers that inspire you right now?
Yeah, before I answer that, man, I wanted to say I give all kudos to you, bro. I actually have done 2 acting gigs. One has been a stand-in, an extra, and just been the extra, the amount of work. Because I remember being a hot day. I was an extra in this movie called Hope's Legacy that came out on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And it was out in Maryland, man. It was hot. And I was just extra. I ain't say nothing, do anything. I was sitting down there sweating and all these takes. I said, I couldn't imagine remembering lines. Then I was in this other movie, the small kind of documentary about sexual abuse. And I remember just couldn't get my lines. I'm a great writer, but just remembering my lines because I'm like, I want to be out of the box. I want to say what I want to say. And they're like, no, you gotta say it like this. But so I give you all the kudos for that. I think the writers that have inspired me, one has been Mr. T.D. Jakes. And the reason I like him is because our paths are similar, but because he was able to converge over. Like he was able to write books, do movies, do whatever, preach, coach. He didn't let anything limit him to like, I'm going to just be this bishop and that's going to be it.
He has a strong essence. He's one of those people who writes the way he speaks.
Yes.
And you can see vividly what he's saying in his writing.
Yes. I like, there's so many different ones. I like Miles Monroe. From a standpoint, very, very deep in practical things and mysteries as well. So I like those. I mean, so many different writers. It's a book, it's not coming to mind, but it's a book called 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And I have it there, but I want to get up, but it's a book that I love because it talks about dealing with building teams. And what the proper, but he does it in a very fictional way. He talks about his office with these different challenges and how you have to be able to adapt and be a coach. That's one thing I love about working with my clients. I'm able to coach, but then I'm like, okay, a lot of times they coach me. I'm learning certain things from them and I'm just never stop, learning. So I love the way certain people write and just the poetic way of how they present, how to use that imagery. I will say this, going back to you, something you said, because a lot of times people who are creative, who are actors, may not be you, but some people, because one of the things I teach is how to write, because all writing is not writing. And I'll leave that as a clue. All writing is not writing. You kind of have to build in what you're already doing. I'll just put it this way, writing is speaking. And speaking is writing. And so from that standpoint, it's how you captivate and how you capture it on the different platforms, especially now with all this technology. So it's really how you do it and how I do it. It's finding the ways that fit your lifestyle. Some people have to write on that piece of paper. If they ain't write on the piece of paper, Some people will never buy an ebook from me. They want the hard physical copy.
Because there's still, I'm a person who I don't make enough time to do it. This pandemic has definitely given me enough time to read tons of books from authors like yourself. And I miss that, opening up a book. I'm not to be on that tablet scrolling up. I'm going to get annoyed and I'm going to put it down at some point. But a book, I'll find myself sitting there until I'm finished.
Yeah.
And there, I want us to go. And I'm talking about that at the beginning of the show. We got to go back to some of those basic things. Reading a book, is simple, and it's not only going to help authors, but it helps us to retain information better.
Yep.
But in terms of just writing from your own personal experience, how much of you has been sprinkled throughout your books?
Every last book that I write, whether it's most of my stuff has been self-help, anthology, self-help, real life stuff. But then I embarked recently on a non-fictional character. His name is Hero. I wrote a book called 19 Cobble Street, The Adventures of the Little Hero. And so I basically talked about this kid who was facing this pandemic, because a lot of people have forgotten about the kids that's watching all this stuff happen.
You right?
Right. I was looking at my children, how, my son, he was born right after 2 months after 9/11. And then his graduation got interrupted. So now he couldn't even graduate. And then before he was conceived, he was dealing with trauma, outside stuff that was going on. I said, hey, how was this affecting these kids? And so I wrote this book. So even a little bit of my past is sprinkled in that book. I always have my secret sauce in every book that I write.
How important is that to you, though, that you are a part of your journey in your writing?
Yeah, I think it's your signature. It's so important. It's almost like that trail that leads to people who really get you. A lot of people buy your books, but they don't really get you. Few people will really get you. And for those faithful people that really start to see who you really are, I always say people will call you what they see. Those people that can really see you, they look for those trails. They look for that's why they're drawn to you. They look for that energy. They look for that word. They look for that acting moment. Like I love watching Denzel, because I know that every performance that he has is going to be a signature moment in that movie. That's going to be like, that's Denzel.
There's always going to be a stamp on it. One of the things that I like as I was doing my research on you, I'm a big self-help. I love self-help books. I love nonfiction, but I really love self-help books or novels that are personal. But I also like to meet the person. I just so happen to have a platform where I could reach out, or somebody can bring an author my way. But I love to meet the person, because I like to see if is this the person, because you could tell immediately if a person is just being creative or if they're putting themselves in their books. Because a lot of authors stay away from being personal. And I think that harms a lot of artists, because with the world we're living in right now, I want to know if you like me, because I'm not going to put my money into somebody who raping children or who got, certain quirks that don't align with who I am. And that's just the selfishness that is my money, my ability to spend my money. But I always tell artists, even non-writers, make your work personal. Make it, you have a story. I've heard you kind of paint this milk picture throughout our conversation. So that's your connection to it. You're a country boy. I can tell you're a country boy because you're talking about farm life, but it definitely is, it's personal, and people want to invest in you because they want to see themselves in you. And if we're not sharing who we are, they can't invest in a stock character or, a piece of your imagination. They want to know, how Oliver lives and breathes, and in connection to them wanting to support you. And it's crazy that people do that, but it's only fair because I'm investing my time, energy, and support into this person. So what part of your advice to other artists in terms of being personal?
Yeah, very personal. I think the good thing with me is that I grew up in the city in Charlotte, but my grandmother lived in the country, which is 30 minutes away. So it was one of those things where you got the best of both worlds. And I always tell people, my advice as an author or artist is get out of your own neighborhood. I've traveled around the world. I've been blessed due to my writing and speaking to be able to be a blessing and receive blessings on 4 continents already. right? So that's your book. I always tell authors, hey, your story that's locked up, be true about it. This is your way to express it. I always say this, I'd rather tell on myself. I'd rather share something about myself than somebody else. Because if I put my story in the hands of somebody else, they can butcher that story. So I'll encourage you.
How do you feel about ghostwriters in that?
I do a lot of ghostwriting, and I'm a ghostwriter. But what I do is that I would never ghostwrite your book without you. There's a lot of people that will ghostwrite and just make up stuff. No, I'm gonna work with you so that I can articulate. Because I don't want you coming later and be like, my story was so misrepresented. We're gonna work, or neither do I. I teach ghostwriters this too. Do you want to write a whole entire book for somebody? Then they realize, what, man, Nate,
that don't sound like me. Yeah, you can hear it. You can. That's why I said I like meeting the writer, because you can tell this ain't that person. They're just writing from somebody else's perspective, and they're not really. Ghostwriters get a bad rep as well, because that happens a lot. But people don't pay attention. They don't ask the right questions when they're seeking out somebody, and it could be a time thing, or I don't have the ability to write in that manner. So I want to hire somebody. But I want to put out your information, how people can book you in terms of maybe speaking engagements, or if they need a coach, or how do we find your books?
Yeah, you can find my books by putting Dr. Oliver T. Reid in on any Google platform. You'll get that. Go to my www.milkwritingsystem.com. I got free tips. I got some free tips there, free case study that you can actually look at. Won't cost you a thing. You can go through it and see it. You can also book me there. You can also go to www.drolivertreid.com. Like I said, I'm gonna be doing my milk March milkness. I got to get it out. So you're going to be seeing some products, and one of those things you'll be seeing is other ways to kind of connect with me. I also want to say this Saturday, tomorrow, is not too late. Myself and my brother Kelly Cole, we're doing what we call Book It. This is something we took around the country before, but due to COVID, we couldn't do our virtual masterclass. And so what we're doing now, you can actually go to www.bookitmasterclass, and you can get in today from the comfort of your living room. 3-hour session that we're doing tomorrow. 3-hour session that's gonna be crazy, straight from your thing. And I'm just,
how do they find that? They just go to your social media, or?
Yeah, they can go to my social media, or they can put in www.bookit, like book, like you're booking a trip, bookitmasterclass.com.
Okay. And I'm already. I can normally tell authentic people because I meet so many different people. But I'm really appreciative to you. So I have 2 more questions for you. One, what are you looking? So what should I have prepared in if I'm looking for a coach? If I'm looking for your services, what should I have prepared in meeting you?
Yeah, I think it's just a made up mind, because we can develop your content. Okay. I think that what I have a challenge to do is people who say they want to write a book, but they don't. So the biggest thing about it is I always say you can't be open and close at the same time. You can't open the door and close at the same time. So the biggest thing is made up mind that you're ready. And then 2, have some sort of idea what you want to say. I think that comes, it will always grow up on you. It will always change. But if you have a made up mind,
talk about.
There you go. Those 2 things.
And my last question to you, I ask this to everybody: what advice would you give to your 17-year-old self, and what question would you ask to your 100-year-old self? Not to change anything, but just
I would say to my 17-year-old self, why didn't you start early? Like that's what I love talking to kids now. I'm talking to my daughter and my son. Like, you guys could be killing the game now. Go ahead and get this done now. Don't wait till you get my age to do this. If I have 40 books at my age, and I'm in my 40s, what could you have right now when you're in your 20s, or you're 18, or you're 19? So that's what I would say to myself. Yep, 4.
Okay. So are they in their process?
We're in their process because they're 18 and 22 and 19. So they're at that thing like, Dad, don't. We got this.
They don't know what he's talking about.
Right. So all I'm trying to do is walk it out, and hopefully they'll see. And see, the thing about parenting is you still got to leave a legacy.
Right.
It's not for them to leave a legacy. At this point, it's for me to leave the legacy.
You got to give them room to make the mistake so they
Yes.
can then follow the direction. We follow the directions. You know, you knew what to do the right way, but you still was tempted over here.
Yes.
But you gotta we still gotta give children that room to make a mistake so they can learn. Because
Yeah, and they
sometimes
so
a
creative.
hard head is the best teacher.
Yeah, and they're so creative out of the wazoo. They're brilliant. So one of the things that I would tell my 100-year-old self is that you still your highest level at 100 is still the basement of your new level. So my pinnacle at 100 is still the basement. That's still working.
And I always tell everybody that I'm interviewing those two questions to your 17-year-old self and your 100-year-old self. Find moments throughout time to answer that question again, because depending on where you are, will be the advice that you give and the question that you ask. And you'll see it either grow, sometimes you might see it move back, but depending on where you are, if you're in a start over moment or if you're pushing forward, just find a moment to ask yourself that question because it gives you a good indication of where you are in that moment.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you stopping by. You got to come back because I wanna hear more about this milk analogy of life. And I want to just know what's coming up. I'm always interested in what's next with somebody. I want when you got that film because I know I'm gonna be in it, but just let me know when it's audition time because I'm not too proud.
Definitely.
But whenever you have something new coming up, sir, just hit me up. You can always come on back and join us and talk about it and market it. And maybe we'll have more time. Right now, our time is limited because we're virtual. But soon, hopefully, with these vaccines, we'll have more openness and more ability to be in the same space. But much love to you, man. Much success. And what you said, I have a lot of your information, but send me those two links for the Book It and the milk. What was called the milk
writing system.
The milk writing system. Send me that information and I'll share it out so people can join you.
Okay, definitely. Thank you, brother.
So this has been another edition of the Artist Exchange Radio Show. He gonna send me that sweatshirt because I'm looking at it more now. Now I see the clock. But, yeah, I see it. I see it. But this
I want the mug. I want the mug. I want the cup.
Got you, sir.
But thank you, Dr. Oliver T. Reid. Definitely look him up on all social media platforms under Dr. Oliver T. Reid. And much success to you again, sir. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. And you'll always have a space here to be able to tell that story, share that story, and engage. So this has been another edition of the Artist Exchange Radio Show, only on BeExposedRadio.com. Like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. And if you're looking for a space to start your own platform, this is your home. So hit us up at info@BeExposedRadio.com. And again, this has been Nate Couser of the Artist Exchange Radio Show. Peace out. Thank you, sir.